Hello, nice to meet you. So we will start. First, we have the hymn melody. The very good way to learn improvisation is, of course, both to learn to play the harmonization that is given, but the more creative way is to have, if you have a single line of the melody, that's very useful. So you are forced to create all the other voices and the harmonization. And your best guide is, of course, is your knowledge, but your ear. It's important to listen to what you do, and the ear is many times the best judge, because it will tell you if something is working or not working. But of course, the knowledge of harmony, where to go, where we are, where we're heading, is very important. If we start from this hymn tune, Slain, we have a single line melody here. So we can start with two voices first. We can play the bass and the melody. But now we are doing it just in the hands. Later we will play in the feet. First thing, what would be best is to do like species counterpoint voice, the first species of voice against voice. Later you can start have second voice moving more. Now it already did because I'm used to hearing it in a certain way. And of course, once you're having all four voices, or even more, when you're playing from a single line melody, the ideal is to have four voice texture: soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. But creativity and situation might lead us into more voices. But it's good to try to limit yourself to four voices if possible. Now, the next thing what we can do here, we can play this in three voices. A few times you might have noticed, and the best contrapuntalists and voice leaders noticed that there was some thing, but mainly I kept going the three voice texture. Once you harmonize with three voices, that is because of the limitations that will force you to make right decisions. Now, once we are gone this far, we can add all the voices. Now that we have all four voices, we can start thinking of maybe altering some of the harmonization. And it would make sense for different verses to have different kind of texture. It's good to keep the clarity going in the several verses of the hymn, but we can get a little bit wilder. And usually the best way to do that, wilder within the, of course, within the confines and context of the hymn tune itself, especially keeping everything in time. So no matter what we do, the main task is to keep the congregation singing and in time. The moving part that can make the most dramatic effect is the bass line. And we can alter it. We can do descending bass line, ascending. We can, the bass is like your main tool to change the harmony in many cases. It's a really huge harmonic tool that we have. So let's try changing the bass line a little bit, to making it a little bit more spiced up. So what happens is when we start doing things with the bass, it sort of gives you inspiration to do some other harmonization. If we change the bass note, we have immediately different options if we think through the bass line. So that has been, for me, really helpful to have the pedal part, the bass line, move in a way that enables us to change the harmony, to try some more exciting chords, etc. Since we have these fundamentals in place, we should have some kind of introduction to the hymn, and if possible, some kind of interlude. And we all know that we need to sometimes expand the interlude or play several interludes if the liturgical needs arise in terms of the use of time during the service. So let's first work on the introduction. And this theme is really delicious for imitating, and a little fugato. Now, why? Because if the first one, it starts very nicely on the tonic, on the first scale degree. Right? Now, if the next entry would be, and the third, and we are back where we started from. And if we do them in a stretto-ish like setting, we end up in a very nice combination. Okay? Now, usually it's good if we do something 3 times. It's good to repeat something 3 times in a different key, with a little modulation. Second time, third time, again 5th apart. So that would be the opening of the introduction. And then gradually, as the introduction should definitely not be longer than the hymn verse itself, it's good to get back as soon as possible to give a tail to the introduction, which in this case would be getting here. That would be a great way to tell the congregation that the hymn is about to begin. And that also applies to the interludes. So once if we do interlude, no matter where we go and how much time we spend within good confines of good taste, of course, most important, taste, great word. It is important to give that tail end always for people to recognize where things are. So no matter how far you have modulated, it's good to have that tail ending to tell when we are returning back to the verse. So let's do an introduction now with this little fugato idea that we repeat 3 times, which is so nicely appears from this text, from the texture of the hymn tune. What I also did, what I didn't mention earlier, I did a pedal point. Before we get to the last tail end, so we know that we are getting to the end of the introduction, or end of the interlude for that matter. Or it can be pedal points are excellent ways of expanding the form and the time. Mostly improvisation is management of time. There are a lot of course, subtleties, and we can always get better. And in the details, our counterpoint harmony. But it's mainly management of time. So if we are able to do that, not necessarily counting measures or beats, which is important, which is a very useful tool, but having the overall eagle-eye feel of the time, when to stop, when to go somewhere else, when is the interlude has to finish, and what's needed. The management of time. So that would be very important. Sometimes a situation arises where you have to expand the time that you play a certain hymn, or what happens in between during the offertory or during the communion, something that you need to improvise a little longer. And you need to fill that space with improvised playing. Now, it does not need to be an organ symphony. It doesn't need to be in a sonata form. Of course, if one so is inspired, by all means. But the main thing is to be able to play something coherent using elements of the hymn, but still that it becomes more improvisatory piece. And it's sort of creating atmosphere, expanding the use of the time between different liturgical activities as required. You look at the priest is not ready at the altar. Okay, I gotta play a little bit more to avoid awkward silences. Even though silence sometimes is a great moment before you play. You just need to know when you start to play and then when to stop. Of course, usually the music fills the void between the silence and the end of the liturgical action in question. So let's do something here on this hymn tune Slain that would be something that we're done with the hymn, or even if we played a different hymn, but we sort of reflect on something in a more calm way, or any kind of atmosphere that we would want to achieve. So let's say if it's during communion, and you've run out of motets to sing with the choir, run out of hymns to sing, and you are only left with your imagination and your beautiful instrument. So let's see. So absolutely free-flowing music, which doesn't necessarily even have a definitive form. So I really hope that people would just go out there and play their hearts out.